Hi, this is Dave, Fell Running Guide. Welcome to this week's map reading task. This week we're in the White Peak, so that's the limestone part of the Peak District, and it's the southern half of the Peak District. So here we are. Can you identify the feature that I've circled? Can you work out where the photo was taken from? And can you identify some other significant features from the photograph and place them on the map? The map that we're using this week is the Ordnance Survey 1 to 25,000. How do we know at a glance it's a 1 to 25,000? Well, public rights of way are shown as green dashes. So that's just a little aside how you can tell at a glance that this is the 1 to 25,000 map. So somewhere on there is the feature and the photo location. So let's have a look at that photo in more detail. What can we see? Well, I'm on some very steep ground just above the tree line here, and the ground continuing to rise to the right and out of shot, so maybe not quite on the summit but definitely on very high ground, looking slightly down and across onto this high ground here. So this high ground has got a boundary on its left hand side as we look of this very steep sided valley, and it comes down and then underneath, and then another valley going off up to the right as we look. So it looks like there's steep sided ground here, our feature there, high ground, another valley there. We can't say whether or not there's water in these valleys, but it wouldn't be unusual if there was. Then beyond our feature, this is going to be critical for working out our location. We can see we've got almost like a bowl shape here. So imagine if you were stood in this area here with your back to the camera, then to your left the ground would be rising, to the right the ground would be rising, and ahead of you the ground would be rising, and then rising more steeply here. Obviously you'd have a steep drop off in the valley behind you. So there are some significant features there, and then we've also got some man-made features. So you can see we've got some definite boundary lines with some distinctive changes of direction. Looks like there's a little feature there, don't know what that is. But then here again we've got a boundary line, whether that's a wall or a fence, and then another, looks like a dry stone wall going along just underneath the summit, and then a change of direction there. We're looking along that wall. That might be significant. You can even see there's a little wall there. So lots to go on. Let's have a look at the map and see if we can pick any of those up. So our main valley is Dovedale, running north to south. It's the only one that shows with water in it. But if we look at this point here, there's the main valley, but then we've got this Halldale here. So could we have been looking over onto this high ground here from the east, with it bounded on both sides by the River Dove on one side and Halldale on the other? Possibly. We were looking for a crag, weren't we, below the high point? Well, there's some crags here, there below the high point, but remember we were looking for that bowl shape above and just to the right of the feature circled. Well, what about this crag line here, Raven's Tor, with this area up and beyond where the contours really open out, spaced out there, but rising to the northeast, rising to the northwest, rising to the west, rising to the south, and dropping off very steeply behind. So that makes sense if we were looking from over here somewhere. What about the man-made features? We talked about those wall lines, didn't we? So let's see if we can see some of those. Okay, so we've got a side-by-side view here. So this feature here, this line of crags, Raven's Tor, we see that there. That's that. And then just this side of it, we can see that fence line going up up this rocky spur, just this side of the rocky spur, turning left along, little short wall coming out, and then a sharp angle change of direction there. So there is the fence line, change of direction, little rocky wall coming down, and then another change of direction and wall going off into the distance. This high point here, tumulus. So a tumulus is an ancient burial site, so usually a pile of rocks or earth mound above an ancient burial site. So that there is that there, the summit there, and then off away beyond that, back into the distance, land going off to a high point there. Well, that's this going off here and along, and then a gradual rise up to there. We can see the man-made feature here, this wall line that runs left to right, down from that ridge, steeply down, and then through this flat area. So that's coming off here, steeply down, and then the ground flattening in here. That little feature that we noted before there looks like a little pond. Some of these are man-made ponds to stop the water draining away in the limestone area. Now that is that there. And then if we just move the photo slightly, this bowl shape that we can see here is this area here. So that all makes sense. What about the photo location? How can we work that out? Well, a couple of things. We know we're on steep ground directly opposite. One thing to note is if I was to go from the photo location just through the left hand side of the crag that's featured, then I would hit that pond. So I can work out by lining those up. And then another thing that I can do is, again, if I look at this wall on the summit, we've already identified that just off the summit. Looks like I'm looking pretty much directly along that. So can I find those on the map? Well, there is the pond, and if I draw a line back through the right hand side of those crags, if we're making that journey, the left hand side as we look, then it's got to be somewhere on that line. Similarly, there is the wall that we identified before. I draw a line out along those, somewhere along there. So that's called taking a resection, and where they cross is reasonably close to where the photo was taken. So in actual fact, the photo was taken from, I'll just put an arrow on for you, just here, just off, I'd come off the top of the nabs, just above the tree line, just onto this rocky ground, and I was looking for a safe way off. Quite exciting coming down. I came down through here, but anyway, yeah, so from there looking over to Raven's Tor was the feature circled, and then the other things that we've noted on the discussion. So that was this week's answer. Hope you got it right. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Look out for next week's map reading task. Bye for now.